ETTM Hotel family. I'd like to invite you and welcome you into this evening's Divine Words with the Sesh Medew Netcher group. Have you here this Wednesday evening. We're going to go over a glyph and discuss some translations as we do every Wednesday. Once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. For those tuning in currently, for those also who are tuning in the archives later. My name is Antoine Germain. I also have a panel of hosts with us this evening who will be also assisting us in doing our translation. Once again, we are the Sesh Medew Netcher. Is a membership of like-minded individuals with aspirations of being true, loyal scribes of divine words, or what some known as Medew Netcher. We embrace the importance of learning the language of Kemet as a means to enter the world of ancient Kemet and have a meeting of the minds with illustrious civilizations, society, culture, and people responsible for contributing so much to the world, whether realized or not. And so, yes, by studying this language, we are able to type into the civilization, society, and the culture. As usual, our purpose this evening, is to explain or to give examples of how Sesh is translated. In doing so, we hope to address number one, the script has been deciphered. Number two, also the method of doing so, the application. And number three, demonstrate that with time, discipline, and patience, even you could translate and transliterate the Sesh. So those are our three purposes this evening. Once again, we'll go over these 4 steps. You want to get these ingrained into your memory, to your psychic. Step 1, determine the direction in which the signs are to be read. Step 2, identify and document each individual sign. And step 3, group signs into words to be searched in dictionaries. Step 4, come up with a sensible translation. Now we understand that this method may take some time, but as you become more familiar with the Sesh by learning the monoliterals and biliterals, and also by using the dictionaries, you will be able to increase your speed. You want to go for quality work, not so much rushing through it or trying to finish up to impress anyone, but making sure that we have an accurate method and steps to come up with a sensible translation and transliteration. All right, this evening we do have the following text. It is actually a text from a Coffin text. And as you can see, we have identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns that we'd like to get into and kind of elaborate on. As I announced earlier, we do have a panel of individuals with us, and they'll be helping us as we conduct the steps. So I can begin with step number 1, which is to determine the signs, or determine the direction by looking at the signs. And so the listening audience and also those viewing, one thing you might want to try to do is look at the signs and see if you can determine which direction it's going, which way or which direction it should be read or translated in. And while you think about that, I want to see if someone on our panel could assist us in determining which direction we should read.
Hotep, this is Damo. Looking at the Coffin inscription you have up, if I was to go to row 1 initially and try to find which direction to read, first thing I would notice coming down is what looks like a bird. The bird is facing to the right. Go down some more, I can see what looks like a snake, cobra, facing to the right. So as we always try to teach, you always want to read into the glyphs as if you're talking to someone face to face. You never want to talk to someone behind their head. So using that, having that understanding, then row 1, I will be reading from right to left, vertical. Row 2, look down, see if I can identify anything that is facing a certain direction. First thing I might notice is another bird about 6 glyphs down. I go down some more. I'm noticing what looks like a basket with the handle. There's another bird. There's another snake down on row 2. So again, we're reading from right to left. We're reading into the signs as if we're talking to the signs. 3, you can notice the figure right there facing to the right. Also the glyphs right above the figurehead. You notice another bird on 3 facing to the right. So as the concept goes, read into the glyph. You will be reading from right to left, reading into, talking to, and it will be vertical. Row 4, you will go down and try to find something. Okay, it might take a minute. You go down. I mean, normally people will get used to the baskets with the handles and which direction. You can see the feet walking, which direction. Something maybe more clearer to you, that something that looks like a rabbit or another bird, again facing to the right. Concept, read into it. So we're going from right to left, vertical. Row 5, right away you notice that snake facing to the right again. Go down some more, there's another snake facing to the right. So if it's facing to the right, you want to read into it. You want to talk to the snake. So again, we're going from right to left, vertical. In row 6, you have a figure standing facing towards the right, and you will be reading the signs above him from right to left, vertical. And always when you try to determine a direction, find some signs that are noticeable, whether it's a bird, whether it's a face, whether it's a figure. See which way they're facing, and you want to read into them as if you're talking to them. Hotep.
Damo, that's excellent. Dua, thanks and praise for assisting us with that, step 1. Now, step 2, have to identify and document each sign. Now, for sake of time, we're not going to go through and document every single sign, but what we will do is we will identify a few signs in column 1. That way we're able to go through and determine the direction of the signs. Or we're able to go through and determine the signs and also begin to collect data as it relates to each sign. All right. So if you look at let's say column 1, I hope the number of the column didn't give away the direction. I hope you didn't cheat out there. I hope you're still able to figure it out without the numbering. Let's see. So if I look at column 1, there are several signs listed, or that we see listed in that column. The first thing I see is a bow. If you look at column 1, in the, could anyone help us identify different signs listed within column 1?
Right away, I'm noticing things as we go and talk about how people need to learn the monoliterals, like how we would like to say the alphabet, the main signs. And if we go to column 1, I'm noticing already one of the main signs. If you're studying it, you'll see the basket with the handle. V31, you'll see the foot right away. That's part of the those basic signs that you should learn right away. So these are the signs that you will pick up on without having to even dig. Go down some more, you'll notice a mouth, D21. That's one of your monoliterals. Go down some more, you'll notice the cobra. That's another monoliteral. So right there, just learning your basic monoliterals, you're able to go ahead and notice some signs right away without even having to dig, without even having to go to the main sign list and do some extenuating searching. So like we always like to say, get those monoliterals first, and baby steps. Learn your monoliterals, 26 of them, and then just keep going. But that's what I noticed right away.
Excellent. I'm also looking at, we go through the sign list. We're able to look at each sign and collect data from each sign. And so some signs, as Damo stated, we have W24, which is a bowl, and we're able to collect the phoneme for that, so we'll know what the sound is. And also V31, our basket, D58, foot, N35, the water ripple. Those also So two minor literals we should become two minor literals that we should become familiar with. And here we have a hieratic quail chick. See, normally you may see that as the quail chick, but in this instance, they're using this symbol of the swirl, and it tells us to use G43. We also have several other signs listed as well: G31, L1, D21. Now, as we look at this sign list and begin to identify different signs, we're also able to start to begin to pick out determinatives as well, which will help us in our grouping. And so as we get done with step number 2, which is identify and document each individual sign, and as we stated, we have collected data, which you can see for step column 1. Now what you want to do is go through and collect data for each column, 1, 2, 3, and so forth. And as you collect each data, you're able to begin to group the signs, which is our step 3, where we group the signs into words and begin to search the dictionary.
And Juan, just to I'm sorry, just to reiterate, when they go to that sign list, they have them grouped off in 26 different categories, and they have names for them. So, for instance, if you was to go and you was to see a man and his occupations, you would click in on that grouping right there, and it will show you the different figures of the men. It'll show you men sitting, kneeling, with hands raised against the wall. So this sign list is one of the main tools that you would need. So when you go through and just look at ones, let's go at one that we're pretty familiar with, the water ripple. And if we remember, that one was N35. So you will go find that grouping. It's in sky, earth, and water. They have them all grouped off for you. So if you notice something, try to get an idea on where it's at. Go to that group. If it's not in that group, get another idea. Look at all the groups. Look at the names. See how they're categorized. See what they are. Once you get to them, you'll become more familiar with them. You'll become more familiar with the signs. So that's another reason why the sign list is very important. A lot of people will look at the glyphs and will get, discouraged. Don't get discouraged. Go to your sign list. Find the sign. It's identified somewhere. So you will go through and you will identify the sign. You will write down what the Gardner code is for it. You will write down the name of it, and you will write down the function, whether it functions as a logogram. When you start grouping them, it'll all come together. But first, go to the sign list. That's very important when you try to go through and decipher all of these. And I just want to reiterate that, Sam.
Appreciate it, definitely. And once again, that kind of goes back to the point that you can't make it a rush job to where you're rushing through to get, for some form of entertainment, or you're rushing through to get to learn it. It's a process, and with so many different signs, it may take some time for you to become more familiar with the signs. But be patient. All right. So if we were back on my screen, you should be able to see uh, where we're looking back at the glyph, and we've already went through our signs and gathered our data. And so now we're ready to begin to group some we're able to begin grouping some words together and come up with some groupings. And so as we look at our following uh, words for our look at our following list of groupings, we're able to use our dictionary to help us determine some of the groupings. And so for our first pair of groupings, we have the basket as well as the jar on top of the basket. If you look at our Vigus, we're using Vigus 2012 edition. And we're looking up page 2,156. We have our W24, V31, and A1. And we're able to get the dictionary entry of INK. And also we understand that's an independent pronoun, meaning I or belonging to me. So that's one of the entries that we're able to determine from looking at our list, from our first column. Now, if we go back to our column, we also see the next one. We have a foot, water ripple, jar, and once again, we said that quill, and also a bird, which is on our sign list. We're able to gather that information. When we group those together, we're going to use the G31, which is a heron, which is probably going to be used as a determinative. And from there, we're able to look it up in a dictionary. And that's listed on page 326. We get BNW, the new, and that's meaning as a heron. And once again, that's D58, N35, W24, G43, and G31. Now, one thing you can do, as we stated previously, is when you do your dictionary searches using Vigus, you might want to type in the translate BNW, or you may want to type in the Gardner codes. Either way, I would encourage you to try both ways to determine. Let's scroll back up to our picture and pick out our next group of signs that we want to look up in the dictionary. We're still using column 1. And here we have, that looks like a beetle. Also have our mouth here, cobra, doorbolt, snake, doorbolt, and a viper. So we're able to take those signs, gather the information on them, each of them, as we did in step 2. In step 3, we're able to put them together, look in the dictionary, and come up with our sensible information as it relates to those groups of signs. If you look on Vigus page 838, we come up with the following. Our definition, who came into being of himself, of sun god, also is a noun. We looked up L1, D21, I10, O34, and I9. We have curve, zephyr, F, or zephyr, def. And so from there, we're able to look up that dictionary entry. So hopefully you're taking some time to look up those dictionary entries. Once again, the first one was found on 2,156. The second one we looked at was found on 326. The third one we found was found on page 838. As we stated, we took the time to do each column. If we go through each column, that kind of leads us. If we group each word in step 3, we're able to come up with our transliteration from grouping the signs into words by searching the dictionary. Before I go into the transliteration, I'm just going to check and see if anyone has anything else to add, or maybe I may have neglected a step or some information. If anyone had anything else to add or to share prior to going into the transliteration. All right. So once again, we went through and we numbered each column. So we can look at our columns again. After we went through each column, we're able to pull up our transliteration from each sign that we grouped together. One thing I noticed when I was doing my grouping was these in column 3 and column 6, we actually have some pretty short columns here. And so if you're interested in seeing how successful you are, how quickly you can come up with transliteration, you may want to begin with something short with like these 4 signs. If you feel intimidated by the larger groups, those are some good starting points to begin. As you can see, we did that with columns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. After we went over our transliteration, we were able to come up with a sensible translation. And we only did a transliteration for, looks like, okay, yeah, we did both column 1 and column 2. So we'll go ahead and see what we came up with. As you can see, there are some words that are repeating. I see B and W once again here, and so forth. So let's see what we came up with. All right. For our first columns, I am Banu, who came into being. And once again, we're able to get that from our first 3 lines of our translations. From the first 3 lines of our dictionary entries in our transliterations. I am Banu, who came into being, your son, your beloved defender, who comes to protect your body, to expel miseries from your body, to give life till eternity on your soul, and forever upon your body. Banu, the ruler of the West. Now let's look back at our glyph once again. And so we can kind of see where some of these things that we're becoming more familiar with are. Here we can see our forever or eternity. Trying to see if I noticed anything else. Oh, life. So some of these, like I said, as you become more familiar with it, you'll be able to identify and pick out actual clusters of terms or clusters of words that you are familiar with. And so here's where it's telling us in column 3. This is where it's telling us Banu, the ruler of the West. So let's go ahead and look, see what we translated for columns 4, 5, and 6. So 4, 5, and 6 is right here. You can see some of these. You see happy in its transliteration. Mayati transliteration. So let's see what we came up with for our translation. I am, and so we'll know that jar and basket is going to be I am. It says, I am happy, your son, your beloved protector who came into existence for your protection, to expel all your enemies from the netherworld, so that you may receive your offering forever, like all the gods of the halls of two truths. Umseti, Lord of the West. So after reading that translation, once again, I like to go back and look at the glyph and see if there's any signs that we can identify or look at to become more familiar with. And so like I said, we see the jar in the basket. Also, as we scroll down, see what else I noticed offhand. See where it says the gods. It says coming to being. You see, I don't see that one. But I also see over here where it says his name of the West, Lord of the West. All right, so these are the transliterations and the translations that we came up for. Columns 1, 2, and 3. In step 1, we identified our signs. After identifying our signs, we were able to go to step. We identified our direction. Then in step 2, we identified our signs. After identifying our signs, we were able to go to step 3, where we were able to come up with after identifying our signs, we were able to pick out different important information about each sign. Then from step 2, we were able to go to step 3 and use our dictionary to come up with searchable words. Then we came up with our transliteration. And from our transliteration, we're able to come into our translation. And once again, your translations may be subjective as far as, but they should still make sense. And what we like to do as a group or as a study team is one person may come up with a translation, another person come up with a translation, and we'll go back and compare them to make sure that they're making sense and that we're close and in the same area. So those are some of the things that you like to do, and we feel definitely feel free to reach out to us if you're working on doing translations and you get stuck, or if you have questions or concerns. We're readily available via Facebook or via Facebook or via Google. Once again, we're at Sesh Medew Netcher group. You can always visit us at www.medunetter.com, and also you can also search us at the Sesh Medew Netcher site on Facebook and also on YouTube. Now, before we conclude this evening, I actually wanted to see if anyone else had anything else they want to add or discuss as it relates to this pit. There are some things that I kind of noticed as I was looking at it. I want to see if anyone else had anything they want to add.
Well, I just want to, so for somebody coming in brand new to it, they will look at this and say, okay, you guys are going to translate this and tell me what it says. All right, so basically from what we translated, is it like those figures are making a statement, announcing their names, saying what they're for? And I'm noticing that each figure is announcing their name and saying what they're bringing or what they're what they're saying. So, and I can see to the far right, it looks like it's cutting off, so it looks like there's more to it. But for what we see and what we translate, as far as the figurines, we have came with the name of the figurines, we have come up with the words, what they're saying, and we're understanding what's going on in this inscription. Is that correct?
That's correct. I would look at it as almost as if they're stating or identifying who they are. I wouldn't say that they're saying it, only because I don't see words spoken. But based on what I do see, I would definitely say that they are identifying who they are, what their role is, and kind of pretty much who they are and what their role is. Now this one looks more like a nectar as far as your son, your beloved defender. I'm happy your son, your beloved protector. So it looks like these individuals or netters are actually going to assist the person, and it's kind of letting up, since it's a coffin inscription on their coffin, it's kind of telling what their role will be as they head to the dua or another dua. That's good. That was a good question. Yeah, one thing I noticed was I was looking at this is just how each has how they're holding the crook and the flail, and also how they're also holding the ankh, and also how they have the tails hanging. And so those things, signify to me, let me know if they are of royalship, kingship, and are there to protect and, as you said, ward off different entities, different spirits per se. That's the good, like I said, that's a good thing about as we learn the language, we're able to identify more within the culture and kind of discuss more in depth or have more in depth conversations about the things that we do see based on what we read, as opposed to having conversations about the things we see just off of hypothetically coming up with terminology or trying to make up stories about what we see when we can actually read what we see.
Hotep, this is Joe, and I just wanted to add also if you can go back to the picture, um, as far as what Brother Damo has said, the images or the figures that's in this picture here. Um, if you look at column 4, it starts off with Inuk happy, I am happy. But if you look at 6, the glyphs right above the figure, it's Imseti. So the one that's speaking or the one that's being quoted or speaking here saying I'm happy is not the same one that we're seeing in the figure as Imseti. So we just have to be mindful of that. Um, that we have to be mindful of everything inside of the picture. But I wanted to add that I know for the sake of time, this is just a brief demonstration of the method and to emphasize the method itself within those 4 steps. Because last week someone had made a suggestion about a method suggestion, and there's really no way of getting around those 4 steps. Everybody does those 4 steps, regardless of your expertise. Everyone has to go through those 4 steps. It's just that the speed that you go through those 4 steps will depend on your proficiency and your expertise and how often you do this. So, for example, step 2, looking up the signs. Obviously, if you do this enough, you'll have a lot of signs memorized. And by the time that you sit down and make an attempt to do a transliteration or translation, there's a list of prerequisite information that you should have already learned or put under your belt. So for the sake of the hangout and this demonstration, this is a brief demonstration, but it assumes a lot of other information that you would have already learned. So this is just to emphasize the methods and the steps. So as you said earlier, step 2, you're identifying every single individual sign. But even when you first start off doing this, as a brother Damo said, you should have committed to memory all the monoliterals. So one of the first things you do for step 2 is just to look for the monoliterals that you already have memorized, such as the basket with the handle, the foot, the open mouth, the cobra and repose, the door bolt, the horned viper, etc. And I'm just looking right down in column 1, right there. But you will go through the whole thing, and you just recognize all the ones that you already know. So then that will cut the time down tremendously, because then you only really have to look up the ones that you don't know. And that's what you would go through with step 2. So that would cut down on the time. And then even with that, the more you do this, obviously you'll commit more to memory, and the less you have to rely on the sign list. And then as far as step 3, same thing. Once you get into practice of grouping these signs, and you'll start to see these signs as words as opposed to individual signs, because our brain leans towards recognizing patterns. And as you familiarize yourself with all of these different inscriptions over time, you'll recognize patterns in the form of words as opposed to these individual signs. So like in the first column, the first 2 signs, that's going to be a pattern that's going to be stuck in your head. You're going to know that's the word for Inuk, which means I. So personal pronoun. independent personal pronoun. Um, and then there's a lot of other words that you'll start to just recognize right on sight. All right, so that's going to speed up step 3 from looking things up. But then the ones you don't know, you will have to look them up. So and that was already provided. So I just wanted to interject those things there.
Do definitely useful, as he stated in the. There's, like you said, there's certain words. I know. Last week we tackled this word, forever or eternity, and you can see it listed 2 or 3 times throughout the description. And so, as he stated, there will be certain in H or in capital H, capital H. There'll be certain words you'll become real familiar with. Thank you for that.
Also, if you could go to the transliteration slide, yeah. Something to be pointed out on this is that there's 2 main transliteration systems that are used, and one is called manual decodage, and that transliteration system is case sensitive. And one of the main purpose of that transliteration system is to eliminate the need to use diacritical markings, which are the small little dots and arrows and things that you see around different letters, because our keyboards are not really designed for that unless you have a special keyboard or special fonts and things like that. So manual decoders was developed to eliminate the need for doing that. So in other words, for example, the top line, number 1, you'll see a capital D there. Now we know that that capital D represents a cobra in repose for the J sound, or represents the J consonant. And if it was a lower D, it would represent a hand, which is a body part of a human being. So that makes that distinction. Now, if this was in the other form of transliteration system, which is the diacritical form, that does have the dots and things around it, that same D would be a D with a line under it, and that's the difference. So what we're seeing here on the screen is the manual decodage version of transliterations, and these systems are an exact science, meaning that if 2 or more people are trying to transliterate the same inscription, for example, this picture we're dealing with, those 2 or more people, everyone should have the exact same transliteration. If they're all using the manual decodage or if they're all using the diacritic, they should all be identical. And then when you get to translations, as was said already, that's where you may come up with slight differences, because there's very rare occasion where you'll find a 1-for-1 translation from a source language to a target language. And the example I always give is like the word Hemet Nesut, which is wife of the king, and some people may translate it as wife of the king, but then others may translate it simply as one word, as the word queen. And you're saying the same thing, but you're just using a different phrase or word to express it. So that's what I mean by the different slight differences in translation. That's why if you ever read E.A. Wallace Budge's translation of something and compare it to Raymond Faulkner's translation of something, or James P. Allen translation of something, or Dr. Theophilo Benga, or Shekanta Diab, etc., you'll see slight differences, but the main point should still be there. It should all be in the same meaning and same message being conveyed. So I want to just point those 2 things out as well.
I want to make sure that I actually that is clear. So the transliteration should be an exact match, correct?
Yes, from individual to individual. So if you were to do an inscription and I were to do an inscription, our transliterations should be identical.
Okay, so the transliteration should be identical, and then the translation can be subjective, as far as slightly subjective with terms such as, like you said, queen or wife of the king, or what have you.
Right. And just real quick, the reason why the transliteration is an exact science is because if we're looking at the exact same inscription, then those if we're doing the same inscription, then those inscriptions are identical. And all the transliteration is to you're transferring one set of characters, which we'll call orthography, into another. So we're moving from the pictorial Sesh Medew Netcher into the Latin orthography that we call the English language or English script. So that's all you're doing. So there's a one-for-one comparison between those. So, for example, I'll use the cobra again. The cobra in the Sesh Medew Netcher is a cobra, but when you bring it over, that's the source. And when you bring it over into the target script, which in our case will be the Latin script that we're using as English, it will be a capital D. So if the cobra is the same, then the capital D should be the same because you're just bringing it over into your target language, yeah, as you have on the screen there. So that's the reason why. All right. So what you see is what you get, pretty much. In transliteration, as we explained, that could be slightly different.
All right, I did have one quick question for you. You kind of pointed out that this was this said happy, but the name listed is not happy. Is it because it's cut off? Is it that the reason why that occurs, or we don't have enough of the glyph to determine it?
Yeah, this picture looks like it was cropped, so there may be other things going on that would reflect, happy somewhere. Happy may be a figure somewhere else in the scene that was cut off. So we don't know just by looking at this one picture, but we do know that word is happy in the top of column 4, and look, happy, which is I am happy, Saek, which is your son, and so on. And then we look over in the figure, we can clearly see that this is Mseti. And even if you didn't know that was Mseti or happy between column 4 and column 6, you can clearly just see, just by visually see that the glyphs right next to number 6 are different than the glyphs below number 4. So even if you didn't know who that was exactly, you just know that they're different. And this whole entire process is like a detective work. So these are kind of clues that you would need to rely on it, or that would help you in the long run, at your final analysis and your final conclusions.
Thank you. I want to make sure that was clear for the audience and for individuals who may run into some discrepancies as they translate, to remember to be flexible, and also, as you stated, kind of pay attention to detail, as the transliteration should be an exact match. As we conclude our presentation this evening, I'd like to see if there's anyone else who had anything else to share or to comment this evening. Excellent. I'd like to definitely thank family for tuning in, whether you're viewing this live or if you're viewing this in the archive. I also want to encourage you to remember to visit us. You can check out our work, student translations, and also get access to a variety of resources such as dictionaries, and also just have a community to network with at www.mdw-ntr.com, www.metronetcher.com, and also you can view the group Sesh Medew Netcher on Facebook and YouTube. I'd like to conclude with a greeting, or as you go, Shalom Hotep, and once again, as you come in peace, we also like to leave you in peace with a peace offering. Thanks for tuning in.